Second, sorry. This was like my selfish way of asking you questions, picking your brain, learning from you, and also catching up all together.
Oh, all right. That's fine with me. Fair enough.
Um, sorry, I'm just gonna give like people a few minutes. I'm also trying to figure out last time I was live, not on the Facebook group, so I just want to confirm that we're good
Okay.
there. Yep. Okay, we should be. Yep, perfect, good to go. All right. Um, well, anybody that knows me has heard what I'm about to say. I appreciate your time. Time is the one resource we don't get back. And
Yeah.
you were kind enough to grant me some of yours. So that means you're literally not doing something else and you're here with me, here with the group. My hope with the group is to help all individuals reach their goals, whatever they may be. Definitely not for a lack of resources. As far as resources are concerned, you are one of the best resources that I know personally. So I'm just trying to put people on game.
I
Athlete,
like it.
wife, mom, coach, active duty military for 12 years, 10, 12 years.
Well, yeah.
Okay, since transitioned to the couch side of things. Um
Yep.
um man, what I don't, I'm not even gonna I couldn't do justice trying to get people to understand how awesome you are. So what I'm gonna allow you to do is, if you wouldn't mind, can you introduce yourself to those that are watching so they have some idea of the absolute gangster that I'm talking to at the moment?
Oh gosh, that's too much. But yes, I am a couch goer on the Army side. Now, I actually am still in the reserves, and that is merely a suggestion of all the respect to my reserve people. But at the same time, if you are active duty, don't do it. Don't do it. Yeah, Minnette Sandoval Cornish. I go by Danielle, former Star First Class. Served with Kyle over there at the United States Army Drill Sergeant Academy. Retired, well, not retired, just transitioned after 12 years. There's a whole lot that goes into the why of that, but moved over to San Antonio, Texas. That's where I operate now. Wear about three hats. Well, more than three hats, but in my career, I wear three hats. The director of sports performance at a college preparatory school right now. I'm also the assistant commandant of the Corps cadets within that program. And I'm also a full time PhD student trying to get to be a doctor. So, mom, wife, the whole nine, athlete, uh, going back to square one, training up for my 100-mile race this year. Uh, had some setbacks last year, but I'm right back on track with that. So, my passion is strength and conditioning, fitness, exercise, nutrition. I can talk it all day long, so you be sure to hone me in, and I'm ready for you.
No, absolutely. So, I mean, if that's not a heck of a resume, I don't even know what is. Um, so the really like to get to the like crux of the matter. So, I'm trying to build a community. From
Mhm.
working with me, same thing you do everywhere you go. You try to find like-minded individuals, maximize your position that you're in, and try to do the best that you can with what you got. Well, as you know, we move around a lot. You're from Pittsburgh, now you're in Texas. Who knows
Mhm.
where you're going after that? Hopefully you stay, maybe I don't know. But it's hard to find community. Um, and also with the information that is just ready to ooze out of that mind of yours, it can be overwhelming, right? So it's like you could lack
Mhm.
community, you could lack understanding. Everything also works, but then doesn't work, and then next thing you know, you're
Mhm.
buying fit tees on Instagram. So, I personally have always loved like your approach as far as like, okay, like I'm gonna do some endurance training. Okay, I'll try some CrossFit. All right, you and I actually even dabbled in not eating and still training and figuring
Mhm.
out ways
Yeah.
to do that. And you said you have a 100-mile race coming up, and I don't we don't have to get into it, but obviously you had a recent setback, but that would knock most people down. So now you could even talk mindset. So when it comes to like,
Mhm.
you're gonna have like, I will talk to you about all these things all day, because there's so much more than just meets the eye. Training for me, similar to you, I don't want to speak for you, is merely like a window or a door or an avenue to significantly greater things, in my opinion. Um,
Mhm.
So what I'm gonna try and do is I'm gonna try to have a somewhat balanced conversation. Full disclosure to everyone that is listening, I am 100% doing this out of selfishness. I love picking your brain, so that's what I decided to do. I do have my notes here, so if you see me looking over here, I got the Facebook Live here too. So if people have questions, feel free to ask. If you're on the Zoom, go ahead and drop them in there, and we can get the questions asked. So, I guess one of my first questions that I have for you is, a lot of times our community tends to be military oriented. You're still within that space. You were in that space for 12 years. It is balance. Now I have my personal thoughts on that, but when it comes to balance, like, what would you say your approach is when you have work, family, and a training goal within your sights?
I, balance. Ooh, I would always start off by completely accepting that it doesn't exist. It does not
Amen.
exist. It You can try all day long. Um, However, if no, let's go back a little bit. Like, if you want to be super mediocre and even keel on everything, then sure, there might be a level of balance that you can have in life. Like, you can be a meh spouse, you can be a you know athlete and soldier and all of those things. But if you have a goal, which I'm imagining that a much of your community has, whether that be a health and fitness goal, a family goal, a financial goal, whatever that might be, and you are leaning into that goal, there will inevitably be a shift in balance of what you have going on with your energy in order to achieve that goal. And number two, you have to be okay with that. Like, accept the fact that there's really not a balance, and two, just be okay with that. And if you have the support system and the resources and things like that to achieve and try to push towards that goal, then accept the fact that that balance doesn't exist. Still give your family what they need. Still take care of yourself health wise. But I've never had a balance. I'm pushing 40, and I've never really had a balance. And it wasn't until maybe the last like 5 or 6 years that it's just like it doesn't exist. Right now, I'm pushing towards school, getting my PhD, and I'm really, really leaning into taking care of my health a little bit more. And so that puts some things on the back burner, and that's okay. So long as the people around you and the people that love you can really, really get behind you in that matter, then be okay with that balance not existing, if that makes any sense.
No, you and I see eye to eye on that one for sure. I too think balance is basically a farce.
Mhm.
But this interview isn't about me. I'm picking your brain. So with that being said, right? So PhD candidate, did you say in what area of emphasis? I apologize, I didn't ask.
No, no, I didn't. It'll be in human performance.
Okay.
And so exercise, sports science, the big it's pretty popular right now in most professional sports. And so I'm just kind of
Mhm.
checking that block, getting that PhD.
No, that's awesome, and I'm
Mhm.
wishing nothing but the best for that. And I know, I mean, it's ridiculous. You're gonna line it up and knock it down anyway.
Mhm.
But in regards to balance, so you said like, hey, I still have to do this, I still have to do that. Do you have any like indicators or kind of like red flags, right? So like for me personally, I call my wife the canary in the coal mine, meaning she like based on how she can responds at times or says certain things at certain times, those can be indicators to my lack of performance in that area of my life. Do you have like it doesn't have to be like a systematic process, but do you have like things that you realize like, oh yeah, I'm off or I'm not performing in this aspect as I'm pursuing this goal?
Uh, I'd say my I don't want to call it a governor, but like there's something that when you're pushing really really hard at something, I think is what you're getting at. It's like, all right, some of these things are falling by the wayside, and that's just God for me. He does a really good job of just speaking up, and that's kind of what happened last year, where I was just pushing 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 pushing, and God had been telling me to take a knee, take a knee, take a knee. And if you don't listen, he'll force you to take that knee, in a sense. So it's really God for me. Just listening, when I do my daily devotionals in the morning, listening to what he has to say to me. And if you know, I don't want to say it's obvious when there's something that's off. Sure, if I, come out and I'm going to make breakfast and my son wants a little bit more attention from me, um, it, I take note of it, but it's God for me. It's really like he'll hone me back in real quick. And I think that that is something I've been blessed with. And I make sure that I'm intentional about listening to.
That's definitely one thing you can't let go. I mean,
No.
yeah, because I personally feel like he's always speaking. It's just a matter of whether or not I'm
Mhm.
listening. Right. So
Correct.
I absolutely love that you said that. So and how do you feel like it took a time to adjust to understand like so to me like there's phases in life just like there's phases in training. Um, Now, as you're pursuing a goal and getting closer to the goal are not quite the same thing, right? Like, yes, some things fall by the wayside as you're pursuing this goal. Like, for example, your 100-mile race. I would say, early on, less mileage, right? Less training demand, less time demand, less recovery demand. So you can do a lot more, right? Maybe a date night, maybe a game night with the
Mhm.
family, things like that. That transition though, is that something where you all come together and you say, hey, look, I'm 30 days out, I'm 2 weeks out, it is what it is, or is it like by now is it like understood?
Are you talking about with regard to my family?
Yeah, I guess in specifically yes, but I would say friendships. It could be
Mm.
managing it with work, maybe projects, things like that. Is it like one of those things where I mean obviously there's certain things you can't let fall by the wayside, but 2 weeks out you really don't have much wiggle room. I would
Mhm.
imagine. So I guess in regards to family, yeah, that'd probably be the best way to ask.
Yeah, I mean, well, family is pretty clear cut for us. So what we did, we completely got this off of TikTok, and there's no shame in our game. But
Hey,
a family sit down of 2024 goals, like a straight up business meeting, leave the house, sit down for a few hours with notepad, the computer, the calendar. What are our financial goals? What are our health and fitness goals? What is our spiritual goals? All of those things. And by putting that as an example, that 100-mile race on the calendar, my wife has seen what that looks like, what a train up looks like for an ultra marathon. And there's full disclosure and understanding there that, yeah, there's going to be, 20 plus mile runs back to back Saturday, Sunday type deals. And she's 100% on board with that. So there is an understanding in that respect. I haven't quite put much thought into the work aspect. I think only because I'm pretty even keel, and I'm in my rhythm and knowing what to do at work to take care of what I need to take care of and kind of get it ahead of the game. And I know this might be a foreign concept to these military people, but I just take time off. I could just take time off now. So your girl's free.
no, that's
So
awesome. No,
yeah.
yeah, I don't know what it is with our community that y- not realizing that 4 hours of focused work, you can get far more accomplished than just like your regular 12-hour day for some reason. I don't, how many times I get asked, like, Kyle, how do you do X, Y, and Z? And I'll be like, bro, because my focus, like when I'm focused,
Mhm.
I'm probably getting 2 days worth of work done, you know?
Right.
I don't think people understand that. And then, yeah, and then the reset, like, oh, you took 2 days off. Yeah, but that 2 days off allowed me to work for 14 straight days or whatever,
Right. Yeah.
um, no, I absolutely love everything you say, and it's always interesting to hear a different perspective because to do things people have never done before, to include yourself, you have to do things you've never done before, and
Mhm.
everything is a learning process. The family coming along for the journey, your body coming along for the journey, balancing all the things like. So I love like how you're phrasing it because I feel like people feel guilty for saying no to
Mhm.
things or I'm trying to think of the proper way to phrase this, but like we all think like we're amazing. Like, oh, I'm 100% a husband. So like of course when I do this goal, I have to still be 100% a husband. And it's like, yeah, that's like an admirable goal, dude. But like you're assuming you're always 100% a husband, and that's just not true. Like I am
Right.
not always 100%. So like I'm pretty sure when it comes to my goal, like we can lower the percentage down, maybe have better quality and so
Mhm.
on. But I think people are just scared of that, and I'm not really sure why.
Mhm.
Um, Now I want to slightly transition to training philosophy. All right. Do
Okay.
you, with all of the things that you've done, because again, for me personally, I can only speak for myself. Every time I do a thing, I kind of cast what, not that I disregard it, but I definitely keep the things that I significantly gel with better, with the understanding of those things are kind of like in my training cabinet in my brain. But like I like
Mhm.
pick and choose things, right? Like I bench like a power lifter. I sprint like like a sprinter, but my endurance training is structured like an endurance athlete. But even when I'm still bodybuilding or whatever, what have you, do you have you like meshed all that to develop your own personal training philosophy? Is that something that you've developed?
I'd say maybe like 90%.
Okay. Would you
By
mind sharing it?
now, no, no, not at all. By now, and this is just kind of, I could chalk this up to age a little bit. In the fact that my body just doesn't quite do what it used to do back when I was 21 years old. But um, the focus before me becomes a whole lot less about what work I'm putting in and more about how am I going to recover to put that same amount of work in. And so, and I'm going to use this as an example. So today, I hesitantly, even it's 14 degrees here in Texas. It's 14 degrees. It's cold.
Why?
Yes, right, exactly. We have this little Arctic freeze coming through, but there was no part of me that wanted to go and put a coat on, drive over to the gym real quick, and get my 5 mile training run in. And but it doesn't happen like it used to, right? I used to be able to just walk into that gym, no warm up, hop on that treadmill, knock it out, walk right back out. But now I know that my recovery in order to do my next training block the next day is going to look really, really bad if I don't do certain things. And so I have placed a lot, and it's worked for me in the past. I sometimes used to do it, sometimes didn't, but now I have to do it every single time. And it's just a mobility, legit, like get sweating warm up in order to get on the treadmill or in order to go lift or whatever it might be. And that's an intense focus for me because I'll recover better. So I have to spend that 15 to 20 minutes warming up and I have to spend that 15 to 20 minutes cooling down. And that is a no brainer, whether or not I'm going into the gym to do a 2 mile run or a 20 mile run, it does not matter. So that's kind of the foundation of my philosophy right now is recovery. And that goes right into sleep and ensuring that I get to sleep at a decent time, um, taking the supplements that I take to sleep, take drinking the tea, all those things that
Mhm.
I could talk supplements all day, and you know that. But
Yep.
that is so like it's less about the work for me
Mhm.
than, and it's more about like how do I set myself up for success to do the work every day because the work is the work. Just do it.
Yep. Yep.
How do you continue and consistently do it? How do I make myself less sore so that whenever that alarm goes off the next day, I'm a lot less inclined to hit snooze or to say no in order to get there. So that's just kind of my overall kind of overarching one. There's a
Mhm.
lot of like little tiny things, of course, like you said, the way you bench. I don't bench. I think bench is what it is.
Yep.
Great. I know how you feel about it too, but there are certain ways that I exercise and whatnot that have stuck over the years, but it's that's not as important anymore.
No, I understand. And then, okay, so I just and mind you, I'm just trying to provide the best value to this community that that we're building as a whole. Now, so if I ask questions, I'm just trying to I'm trying to like cover all the sides of this dice. So you said very important, 15 minutes before, 15 minutes after. If you're short on time, which one are you picking? Or are you incorporating both and maybe the training itself takes a not a back seat, but like maybe we drop volume? Like what is your approach when it comes to that?
Sure, I'll just dial it down. Like, I can do 5 minutes before, 5 minutes after,
Okay,
right?
so we're still
Or
hitting the warm up and the cool down period. Like that's non-negotiable.
period,
Okay, okay.
non-negotiable.
All right. Because I think I do a very, very similar process as well. I think people tend to overthink. That's why, like, I don't want them to hear you say, "Oh, I do 15 and 15." It's like, "Oh, I got to do 30 minutes and then maybe
Oh, right,
cardio and
right.
then maybe a lift." Or I'm like, "No, it's really not that complicated." Really, guys, she's saying
Hmm.
warm up, cool down.
Hmm. Right.
Um, so so how would you say you approach that when it comes to other individuals training? Like, how do you balance what you value and know is important versus what like a client, or an athlete that you're trying to help? Do you, because I know, like, for example, myself, when I handle clients, I try so very hard to remove my personal bias that I know I have just because I'm human. And I stick to what just is, but at the same time, like, you know what works, right? Like, some things just are. Like, some people can digest certain foods better than others. That you have to find out. But like, there are like hard set things, like a warm up, like a cool down. Do you at least afford those opportunities initially to the client and allow them to decide for themselves, or are you like, how do you do that? How do you manage that?
Well, right now, a majority of my clients are 16 and 17-year-old testosterone filled lacrosse and football players in high school. And so, A, they're going to listen to me no matter what. But B, they, you have to get buy-in before you do anything, right? And so long as someone understands the importance of it, I think that, and you can get that buy-in, but I'm sticking to it. And
Mhm.
something like a warm up and cool down, that's very generalized. But for a maybe an individual client, it's all about individualization and
Mhm.
specificity,
Yep.
right? So if I'm a working with a young person, do they need a 15-minute warm up? Maybe not. Is there six dynamic exercises of 30 seconds each that I can probably put you through in order to get you to a point where you're nice and warm? Sure. So it's all about the individual. I'm sure you understand that. And it's also about specificity, right? And it's, are we going into a an upper body session? All right. So we're not really focusing on warming up anything in the lower body. Let's get the upper body loose and let's move on. And so as far as like leaving my personal bias out of it, my personal bias is so structured in science that I need it to be in it.
Yeah.
I don't, like
Yeah.
I've been doing this for so long and I'm fully immersed in what literally works and not what I think works and what the science says. And when the science changes, then I'll change. And when
Yep.
the proof goes out the window, then I'll change with it. But that's kind of just one of the advantages of where I'm at in my career and in my knowledge base.
Um, that I again, I'm gonna co-sign pretty much everything you say. What
Mm-hmm.
is a means that you use to stay up to date with some of those things, like as a coach? Because I personally, I don't feel necessarily like the client has to be the one that's like, because you know how it is. Like, they'll come to you, hey, there's this new triple backflip overhead extension with my left ankle in ice water, and you're like, that helps me lose 10 pounds in 1 week, apparently. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't really regard, like, not that they shouldn't, like, obviously be an informed individual. That's kind of like what our job is to do, is to inform our clients. I tell my clients all the time, my job is to hopefully reach a point where you don't need me anymore. Um, but how do you as a coach stay up to date? Because there are really just so many pieces of information that come out. Some come out and then all of a sudden they're different 2 weeks later or a month later. Peer-reviewed studies get redacted. Like, how are you consuming that information and incorporating that into your training?
So a lot of it comes from just text, right? So and base knowledge of the human body. The human body, although science is evolving and I know research is evolving and information, what might be working and what might not be working, I think that you have to always go back to square one and look at how the body works, right?
Hmm.
And if it makes sense in some regard, then I can start maybe even entertaining the idea. Let's, we can use uh give me any diet whatsoever. Give me a fad. Let's play this game.
Oh man, I got. Can you body keto for like a minute or two?
Sure, sure.
It works. I get
So
it. Hey, anybody listening, if you fall into the category as an individual that wants, sorry, disclaimer. If you fall into the category where it would benefit you, by all means, do the diet. It definitely works, especially if you're removing an entire macronutrient and then you're therefore lowering calories. I'm off my soapbox. If you want to do it, do it.
yeah, if you want to do it, do it. Now, full disclaimer: I have a pretty big insurance package. However, I am not a nutritionist, so consult your doctor with anything that I say.
Yeah.
However, you take something like keto, right? The removal or the majority removal of any one single macronutrient. I can sit there and I can go back to how the body reacts to certain things. Whenever I don't have carbohydrates, I don't, in my muscle glycogen, my liver glycogen, things like that are completely depleted. Now my body's primary energy source is turning into ketones or fat and things of that nature. Like, it makes sense. Now I go back to what we just talked about prior to this is, for that individual, does this work? I love donuts. This is a fact. So is it a feasible route for me beyond a few weeks of maybe trying it? Because I encourage people to try it. If just try it. If it works for you, try it, and then we'll go from there. However, you have to look at the individual. If it makes sense in science and it makes sense for the body, then we can move on and have a conversation about it.
Mhm.
And so as far as resources, I mean, I have access to a lot of databases, and so you probably can't see, but my bookshelf is just full of, the journal Strength and Conditioning and Research, and all of these peer-reviewed journals and things like that. And then, ultimately, when I see an article or a client or somebody comes to me with an article or a new fad, um, part of me is like, let's see who published it first,
Mhm.
because a lot of times there's an agenda there,
Yep.
and what industry put it out. So always take those things into consideration. Um, but ultimately, if someone comes to me and says, I want to try the keto diet, that's fantastic, great. But what's the goal?
Mhm.
Is it fat loss? Is it that you love to eat steak? Is it that you love avocado? Like, let's figure out why you want to try that. And let's see if A, that works for you. And if it doesn't, then there's other ways to achieve the goal of eating steak every week. So that's kind of where I go from there.
No, absolutely. I typically try to pair the why to the how, right? Like
Yeah.
if any individual that knows their why can pretty much establish and execute any how, but that applies to like specifically trying to implement things, right? People they don't understand like, oh yeah, just send me a meal plan. All right, man. Oh, just send me a workout, and it's like, I mean, I can do all of those things. Oh, let me do keto. Again, I can. I'm here to facilitate your training and nutrition to the best of my ability, should that be the route that you and I decide to take. But it's more than that, and I don't think people quite understand. And you're hitting the nail on all of the heads when it comes to this stuff. Literally, you said the line that I say to every person that ever asks me about keto, like, "Oh, how does keto work?" Absolutely, keto works. Do you like donuts? That's literally my follow-up question. I don't even ask like, "Hey, are you
Right.
trying to be like a power, or a speed athlete?" Like, like I don't even go to that until like later on. But I go, "Hey, do you like donuts?" And like, "Yeah, I love donuts." Like, all right, yeah. So this may not be like the thing.
Right.
Um, with that being said, we've covered some of your training philosophy. We covered balance up to this point. I would like to transition. Do you have any favorite movements or favorite workouts that you specifically enjoy? Like, just for some reason, it's Saturday morning, and I know you're training for a 100-mile race. So like for you, Saturday mornings is probably like a 20-mile race. But let's say you didn't have a specific goal. Like you ran the 100-mile race, you're kind of into that reintroduction to training, or what have you, whatever position you're in. Do you have like go-tos? Do you have like, like an AMRAP or like a circuit or certain movements that you just enjoy? I would just love to hear what you have to say about some of those.
Yes. So anything core.
Okay.
Like, I love to train the core. Now I could tell you, and this kind of goes into what happened last year. Um, and it's I could just kind of catch you up in a two minute thing, I suppose. So last July, my right lung collapsed. I had a spontaneous pneumothorax and did not know why. I walked around for 3 days with a collapsed lung. Just didn't understand why it was hurting, and found out it was collapsed. And they do some sort of like oxygen therapy. And a month later, it collapsed again. And so whenever it collapses 2 times in a row, they're like, look, we got to have a procedure called a pleurodesis. And that's essentially them going inside my chest wall and kind of scraping it with essentially a surgical Brillo pad so that your lung adheres to your chest wall, and that way it doesn't collapse anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But in the process of all of the imaging and stuff like that, preparing for that surgery, they found a large tumor along my spine when I was getting all of the MRIs and whatnot. And so, because of where it was placed, it wasn't easy to just go in and biopsy it and things of that nature. So while they were inside there, the cardiothoracic surgeons decided to take the tumor out and do the pleurodesis at the same time. So that was in October. Got in there, took this tumor out, did the pleurodesis. It was benign, thank God. But the recovery from that has been pretty terrible. Where that tumor was along my spine, my T10 and T11 nerve was completely cauterized off. Now that controls pretty much the whole side of your your transverse abdomen, like all of
Yeah.
that. And so I do not have function for the rest of my life of the right side of my core.
Mm-hmm.
And that has taken a massive amount of adjustment, not just for running, but just for like sitting up in bed, having to roll to sit. I mean, all kinds of adjustments that are necessary, not having function of that side. So to train core is very, very difficult, but also it it brought me back to square one and why I do love to train my core more than anything else, because everything that we do comes from the core,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so if I'm recovering, I'm off season, whatever it might be, I don't have much time in that day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go into the gym. I'm going to do bridges. I'm going to do bird dogs. I'm going to do dead bugs. I'm going to do side bends. I'm going to do my Russian twists, whatever that is. Massive amount of planks in order to build and maintain my core, because as we age, that's kind of what goes away. And then all the other ailments come along with it. And
Mm-hmm.
so if we keep our core strong in time, everything else we can kind of work on and supplement. But the core is, I am learning more and more these days. Um, Being without half of it is extremely important, right? And so, core is what I will always resort to training to. And it's not for aesthetics, it's not to have a six pack,
Mm-hmm.
it's not any of those things. It's so that I'm able to stand up, go grocery shopping, and come back in one trip type stuff. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I need to make sure that my core is strong.
Well, and I think people, those that are listening, they'll be surprised that you said core. I see some comments on the Facebook Live, but the things that work aren't sexy. Like if I'm sitting in a front rack position, I'm about to do my front squat. I'm sitting in a front rack position. I'm stabilizing that body weight with all of the other muscles that are incorporating for my core. So like if I have to achieve this bottom position in the squat and the front squat and therefore stand up, or if I'm in the front rack position, I'm pressing overhead. People don't understand how necessary it is during the sprint drag carry for the ACFT, and then it's
Mm-hmm.
taxed during that, and then all of a sudden you're like, why can't I plank for X amount of time? Well, you don't have the gas in the tank, and then the human body to me it's a signal system, right? So like to me it's always out. It's not often that whether it's myself or a client, that like an ankle injury is hardly ever an ankle injury, right? Like
Correct.
I always look up. I go, okay, like unless you twisted your ankle, it's like, okay, so the lack of ankle mobility is probably, so associated with what's going on with your knees, which is what's going on with your hips. Oh, and then you probably have lower back tightness and so on and so forth. And it's like that it like branches out. And that's I love that you said core because 9 times out of 10, like you would maybe even more. I don't know what the numbers would be, but this isn't Family Feud. I didn't ask 100 people, but if I did ask 100 people, I would imagine
Right.
less than 10% are going to say core. Um, and are you? And then one thing I want to highlight, like to anybody that's listening, you noticed that she said that she doesn't have function on her right side and still decides to train the thing because it's out of necessity. But she didn't say, oh, well, like I can't train it, so I'm not going to train it. She's finding ways to train a thing because it's important regardless. Like maybe I can't back squat, but I can leg press, or I could goblet squat, or I can, sumo squat. There's so many variations to these movements, or plank. Maybe I can't, I doubt you're on your right side, throwing a ball into the wall and catching it, unless of course you can. But like you're going, okay, I have a training limitation. How can I attack this? Because it's still absolutely necessary. And that's like, if there's one thing to take away from this conversation, it's definitely that.
Yeah, I have to say, so look, I'm not superwoman, and where I'm not saying that I got to this
That's a
point.
lie.
Listen, I didn't get to this point right away, and my wife will tell you, at first I was very discouraged and I was very, very frustrated because I was going from being able to do a lot to being able to do a little. And so, or nearly nothing. And, as I'm sitting in the hospital bed, my second visit to the hospital. So, what I didn't say was, after my initial surgery, uh, I got home and started having some issues, fever, all of those things, and had to go back into the hospital for another 6 days because I had about 2 liters of fluid in my right side of my chest, had to get it drained out, all those things. And I was extremely frustrated. And after I got the go ahead to start exercising, that was my mindset. Like, I am the queen of finding alternate exercises for other people. But when I get in there, it's like, no, I want to be able to do what I used to be able to do, and I want to be able to do it now. So it took me a little bit of time to just be like, all right, we're starting from square one, and that's okay. TD Jakes once said that sometimes you have to accept being a survivor first before you can move on to being successful. And so I had to get that mindset initially, and then I was able to move on and find my alternates. And there's a whole lot that I still can't do, but I know that it's a process and I'll get there eventually. There's always an alternate, and you can always progress over time.
No, that's couldn't have said it better myself. You're identifying where you are in order to get to where you need to go, and that's
Yep.
that's you, a trained athlete for you've been in athletics, an athlete for 20 plus years, so or even more than that. And then whether it's a person that's in the gym at the moment, currently New Year to me type crowd, like it's okay wherever you're at is okay. I'm definitely preaching to myself on this one because like I'm the same way. I'm like, no, 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 like we're going back to that. I don't care how long. Like I was dealing with a really bad hip injury for about a year. And it was specifically with squats. Everything else was perfectly fine for the most part, but I was like so stubborn. I was like, no, 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 like you're gonna squat. And then it got to the point where I knew how much I could squat, and if I went over that, I knew exactly how long it would take for me to recover. And I was just like,
Yeah.
I was toying with it, and finally I was like, all right, we're just not going to squat for 30 days, and we're going to
Mm-hmm.
recover and stretch and incorporate a lot of those things. And then you find out all the other reasons why everything wasn't working, and then you're like, man,
Yep.
all I had to do, and that was a
Understandable.
year. That was a year that I was like, no, no, like I'm still gonna, I don't care, I'm gonna squat. And it's just like, and I know better, like it.
You could have
So
saved yourself a year and called me, man.
oh yeah, no, yeah, definitely should have. So again, another aspect that I know you and I are gonna agree on. I need to find something we're not gonna agree on because I love
Bench
your
press.
no, okay, yeah, I don't I actually prefer incline bench press and shoulder press. Um
Okay.
for a variety of reasons. But so when you said that, you and I actually probably agree on bench press. Um But anyway, but yeah, like I gotta find a topic that you and I don't agree on specifically because your perspective is just the way you can speak on a topic. It's there's no way that I wouldn't take something away from it, you know, and I don't want to shy away from conversations that I don't agree with people. But this one I know we have a similar thought process before because we've talked about it. So I'm gonna use a word and you're gonna laugh or not. But I can't even I already know the answer. Motivation.
Okay.
Okay. Um, how do you specifically feel about it? And then my follow-up is going to be, um, because how you feel about the topic of motivation is going to be different how you present it to one of your clients. Um, so I understand the value of it. I don't want anybody to think I'm laughing at the thought of motivation, even though I kind of am. Because you're not always going to be motivated, long story short. But I want to know how you approach a topic of motivation. I understand you're most likely going to lean more towards discipline, and if I had to guess. But when it comes to also like talking to an external, you know, individual, like somebody that's not you or incorporated specifically with what you do, how do you approach that?
You're right. I'm sure this is somewhere we agree on. Motivation is fleeting, right? It's temporary. Um, Not to completely downplay it though, right? So if
Mhm.
I'm motivated, like great. Like you see all these people in the gym right now waiting for that to die off. They're all motivated, and that's great. Um, I have shifted. I have grown, Kyle. I have grown because in the past, what I would say is motivation is BS, and you need to be over here. However, I have shifted to motivation is great. Now let's make a plan for when we don't have motivation,
Mhm.
when motivation is low, or when it's completely non-existent. Um, because I don't want to downplay motivation anymore like I used to.
Yeah.
And then if we just put things in place, tools, resources, know thyself kind of stuff when motivation is low, then we can be happy when we have that motivation. But we also have a plan to execute and do the work whenever it's not there at all. And that's when we go into your discipline and your commitment and consistency and all those other things that we know are the true indicators of achieving a goal.
So would you say you, because an approach that I have, and it sounds, you know, I don't want to speak for you, but it sounds like you kind of said it, was so what I do is like, for example, for whatever reason, you know, no shocker, a nice pump, right? Like a nice arm pump or something. If I
Mm-hmm.
go and I train arms, I'm going to be significantly more motivated than legs, let's say, as an example. Not all people are equal in that regard, but some maybe. What I started doing was similar to you, right? Like I'm like, well, okay, if I'm motivated, I'm more likely to do certain things during this training session. So I know I'm not always motivated, but what can I look like? I start analyzing that training session to be like, okay, well, what am I thinking? How am I feeling? What maybe what I'm listening to? Because there is that extra little like to me, it's a bonus, right? Like I'm not always gonna have it. If I have it, great. If I don't have it, we're training anyway. But if I do have it, like the that training session just hits better. So I started looking at, okay, what are like you said, know thyself. What am I doing? What is my thought process? Am I driving to the gym dreading legs? Well, then of course my leg training session is going to be crap. So I started trying to replicate the circumstance, whether it's thought process, actions, self-talk on the days that I love training, and I try to replicate that to the days that I don't train. And that was actually one of the reasons why when you and I knew each other that I was endurance training. I didn't like any of
Mm-hmm.
that stuff. So I was like, I wonder if I could do this thing that I don't like enough, get good at it, and like it would shift my thought process on it. It didn't exactly shift my process on it, but I was able to learn aspects of myself as an athlete that I can now take forward into different training endeavors.
Yeah. Do you listen to, I'm sure you do. I'm sure you're a big podcast listener still.
Yeah.
Mr. Andrew Huberman.
Yep. Yep.
Did you see he had David Goggins on recently?
I did. Yeah.
Okay. Did you listen to that one?
So I didn't listen to that one. I did catch a clip, like a 15-minute clip of him talking about how fascinated he was with David Goggins. So I haven't been able to watch the whole, or I don't want to say I haven't been able to. I haven't watched it.
Okay, yeah. So and this will come kind of full circle. And I'm really glad you brought that up because I'm pretty fascinated with some of the things that came up, some of the new research on motivation and why people do things and why we do hard things. There is a part of the brain that is, and I can't, it's so long I can't even name it right now. However, there is a part of the brain that directly correlates to our body's desire to survive. And part of it, what they've done is they've measured and evaluated it in obese individuals, non-athletes, athletes, elite athletes, and all of the whole spectrum. And what they found is that this part of the brain is bigger in your elite athletes, and very, very, very small in obese individuals, non-athletes, etc. And so what they have found is it is directly correlated with how much you do things or don't do things despite whether you want to do them or not. So
Hmm.
my alarm goes off. I don't want to get up. I do it anyway. That part of your brain grows. And it's kind of groundbreaking research, right? I have a workout. I don't want to do it. I'm going to do it anyway. That part of the brain grows. And the more and more that people do that, of course, athletes do that because they train despite most of the time not wanting to,
Hmm.
or they practice, whatever it might be. So he coincidentally put that into discussion with David Goggins because he constantly goes out and does things that he doesn't want to do, hard stuff,
Hmm.
and that part of the brain continues to grow, making smaller things in life that much more doable. And so that directly correlates with like your motivation, right? So I like what you said about setting the conditions. If I'm
Hmm.
going to use a Nick Bear um, phrase, right? Setting the conditions for yourself to be motivated. I actually can't say that I've ever really thought to do that. So you got me on that. Like what is the difference between the days that I'm really, really like, all right, this is good. What kind of music am I listening to? What's the weather outside? Whatever it might be
Hmm.
that's having me in a much better attitude or more motivated to do this than this. So I like that a lot. But my question is, how do we take circumstances of life as vast and crazy and unpredictable as they are and really kind of make that work? So part of like therapy for me, right? When I saw my therapist, like, man, for PTSD, man, the first thing she says is you're a control freak. And I'm like, there's no way. But it's true.
Yeah.
So by trying to control the X's and Y's and Z's and the play and the this, it's it's setting yourself up and setting the conditions. But part of me, and this is just a product of what I've been through in the past year,
Hmm.
it's very, very difficult when something goes wrong or you can't get to that workout or you were super motivated. I set all the conditions
Hmm.
to do this and it didn't happen. And so, but I would love to explore that. Like I'm going to write that down and explore that and possibly research it down the line because that's something that's very tangible. That's
Hmm.
something, people love their ABC 1, 2, 3 steps
Yeah.
to do this, that, and the other.
Hmm.
Give me the 10 steps to motivation type deals. That's not a dig. Like that's
Yeah.
great. But I always caution when life throws you that hook, then what? And that's kind of where I've been at with all of my philosophies. Like What's the plan when the motivation fails? What's the plan when all of those setting of conditions
Hmm.
fails? And that way you have that constant like recipe in life that you're just going to constantly figure it out in the end. So I like that. You got me on that a little bit.
Well, actually, I want to credit you because you literally brought up something that once I started doing that, I had to learn to overcome.
Hmm.
So, because like you're right, like all like I'll say things like, "Oh, in a perfect world, blah 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 blah." Um, and so I try to, I'll think about the conversations that I'm having, the training sessions that I had, interactions with my wife, right? And throughout my day, towards the end of the day, I tend to unpack my day, right? I look at it. Did I have to say it this way? Could I have done that? Why didn't I get this done? And I have systems in place. And all think like my thought is, yeah, okay, in a perfect world, X, Y, and Z happens. But that's not that I know that's not going to happen, right? Like it's an 80-20 rule, like diet, like training, like anything else. 80-20 rule is kind of like what I live by. If I can get 80% there, I'm far better than striving for 100% and then getting let down when I land at 80 anyway. And I started noticing something as simple as like, okay, like I go to the gym, right? And let's say I don't want to squat, which I actually like squats. I don't know even why I said leg day. Let's say squats. But let's say, okay, I go to the gym and for example, setting the conditions. I'm thinking about my day, my upcoming day the day before. And this is just something that I do. I'm thinking about my next day. Like I've planned out my week as reasonably. I think about, today's Tuesday, so Tuesday night, I'll think about Wednesday. So, for example, if I'm one of those people that gets frustrated with a lot of people in the gym, I go, okay, can I make it to the gym at a reasonable time to where there's not a bunch of people there? Is that within my control? It either is or it isn't. If it is, I'll make it happen. If it isn't, it'll buff to get over it. I literally can't do anything about it. I get out of work at this time, so does everybody else in my area. We're all at the gym. So like I'm consciously deciding, like I'm confronting the resistance prior to confronting the resistance. Right. So I've
Hmm.
already had that preparation. And then, like another common thing at people that are training do, right? Like, okay, all right, I got a squat rack. Cool, cool, awesome. And then I look over and like all of the dumbbells are missing or something like that. Right. Okay. There's a variety of things you could do, right? Like initially you want to get upset and you want to get bothered, but again, I've thought about this already because I've thought about my training
Hmm.
session. Okay, I'm gonna squat. Then for whatever reason, because I hate myself, I'm gonna Bulgarian split squat. So I gotta decide on how I'm gonna set that up, right? But like, okay, but I'm here at 5 p.m. So like the thing is like people will say things and then they'll be shocked that they're happening. It's like, man, the gym was packed and all the equipment was taken. Oh, well, what time? Like in my head, not that I would do this initially because talking to somebody else, I got to be a lot nicer. But in my head, I'm going, oh, like I wonder what time they went. And it's like 6 o'clock at night. I was like,
Right.
what? Yeah, I could have told you that and I didn't even go. But
Hmm.
I'm trying to set the conditions and I'm trying to control the controllables and the aspects in which I can't control. I'm trying to do the best that I can to handle those. And the one of the better ways that I found is confronting them before they happen. Right? Like an easy one would be like and I'll get off my soapbox here. Like an easy one is let's say Morgan says something to me and I just take it sideways, right? Like I'm just like, what? You know? One
Hmm.
thing that I've learned that because well it's it's even funny saying it out loud, but I just assume that I'm wrong. Like I
Hmm.
almost always assume that I'm wrong.
Smart.
Right. Yeah, for a variety of reasons. But
Right.
and I'll have conversations with other people, like buddies of mine or whatever, and I'm like, so you mean to tell me, like, because our default is like we're like, how dare they, or how could they, or like, hey, how dare they curl in the squat rack, or how dare they talk to me this way? And it's like, for example, my wife, who thank the Lord, is healing from giving birth to the most beautiful, precious thing on the face of the planet. So there's a variety of reasons why she would potentially be bothered or upset or tired or stressed out or whatever. But it's like, so this woman that married me hitched herself, like we're together, we're a team, we're doing life together. Like what are the chances she intentionally went out of her way to specifically offend me? Like when I
Right.
phrase it like that in my head, it's like, oh, well, not that it's zero, but it's probably close to zero. You know what I'm saying? Unless I did
Right.
something, then maybe she's trying to stick it to me. But like,
Hmm.
I think people forget that. Like, question yourself in these situations. Whether it's training, whether it's relationships. I know this kind of took a turn, but like, what are the chances that those things are going to happen, right? And if the chances are high, how can I? Because I can only control myself, my actions, my thoughts. how can I have influence within my sphere? And if I can't have influence, how can I reach a level of acceptance to where it doesn't, not that it doesn't matter, but its impact is significantly less.
I like that a lot.
Sorry,
I'm gonna use it.
I just
I'm gonna use it.
no, hey, try it out. If it works, great. If it doesn't, I'm sorry that I took 5 minutes of your interview to say, hey guys, try this. Um, I absolutely want to be conscious of your time. Clearly there's got to be a part two, three, four, and five. Because I got to like three or four of the topics that I
Mm,
wanted to cover, but I knew that was gonna happen. Um, but I did only ask you for an hour, so I'm going to stay true to it. If you have questions in the Facebook, I'm going to check now, see if we can get them answered before we go. You will be answering them, Danielle, if you don't mind.
yeah, yes, of
Let me
course.
take a quick peek. But again, I just want to say I'm blown away by the support of the group, of yourself for giving me an hour of your time. It's definitely not going unnoticed, I promise.
Of
Um,
course.
so we have the first one was I saw it. Okay, so for the cool down, are you doing it specific for like is it stretching specific or is it specific to the training that you did? Because this individual mentioned that they bodybuild they train as a bodybuilder. So like what would like how are you structuring that cool down? Is it similar regardless of the training that you're doing or like how would you approach it?
So it's definitely it's very similar to the warm up for the next training session,
Okay.
if that makes any sense. Most of my training sessions are running, right, or sprinting or some sort. So putting your body through the motions of the next day's workout, right?
Okay.
So will you'll have a 12-hour head start on moving your body for the next day. If that makes any sense.
Okay. And I guess selfishly, do you alter that at all based on like time of day or anything like that? Or you're just literally thinking about, okay, I did this training session and I'm setting myself up for the next one.
Just yeah, just setting up the next one. I mean, you can get down into those kind of nuances, and if I am training someone, I guess I can get down into those nuances a little bit.
Hmm.
um but another thing, I don't know where most people are, but if you have a power plate anywhere in that gym and you see it over there in the corner, you have no idea what it is, hop on that bad boy because it really helps with warm up, cool down, um the mobility of your joints and things of that nature. It's a miracle worker. But move, if you have an upper body workout, my cool down, of course I'm stretching a little bit of that upper body, but if I know I have leg day the next day, I hate that word, leg day the
Yeah.
next day,
Yeah.
um I know that I need to get a head start
Hmm.
on mobilizing my hips. I need to get a head start on mobilizing my ankles, things of that nature, and also activating my core ahead of time. And
Hmm.
that way, the next day, when I start that warm up, I'm not starting from scratch.
Are you doing any movement patterns when you wake up? Like, are you doing any like flow movements or,
Have to,
okay.
have to.
Yep.
Cat cow, pigeon pose. Um, those are my main two because I'm just old now and I have to do it just to move. But
Yeah.
cat cow and breathe, breathing 5-7-9 breathing,
Yep.
things like that. Like, and then I don't know if you've heard of non-sleep deep rest. Uh,
Mm.
that it's pretty legit. If you wake up and you feel like you got kind of a crappy night's sleep, or you're just kind of dragging beyond the fact that you just got up early or whatnot. Like you
Hmm.
legit didn't feel like you got enough sleep. There's a protocol called non-sleep deep rest. You can just hop on YouTube, search for it, and a lot of people have their own recordings. Andrew Huberman actually has his own recording for that as well. And it basically just gets your body um, in a state of deep rest without being asleep. So if
Hmm.
I come into my office after a bad night's sleep, I can sit here and he'll take you through that protocol. It's a lot like meditating and just getting the neurological things awake in your senses and things like that. And little 10 minutes. and you will feel like you got another couple hours of sleep. It's
Yeah.
pretty legit.
I
Yeah,
gotta
so
check that
little
out. I
stuff
wrote it
like that.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. And DSR
I'm
or
gonna check it out.
non-sleep deep rest and SDR, whatever it is.
Yeah, I think I have like a I have like an app on my phone that like reminds me to do some like breath work throughout the day. So I'd
Mm,
imagine it's somewhat similar because I noticed that like I'm kind of like I'm getting back to that rest digest type situation. Like I'm like instead of activity, I'm trying to like relax even though I'm awake. But I'm definitely gonna check that out. That sounds awesome.
yeah, for sure.
So we got some questions. We got all right. So we got sauna after workout, worth it. What's your opinion on that?
Love it. Love it. And that just could be a personal preference. I mean, we could talk the physiology
Mhm.
of continuing to heat up the muscles. If you're in there kind of stretching, if you're in there bringing your body the yin, the yang type deal, right? So you're
Mhm.
going into that gym and you're really, really going after it. If the sauna is serving as like a mental like reset and bringing you back down, that is highly necessary. And so love it for that reason. Love the steam room, love the sauna if you want to feel like you get a little bit more sweat in. I usually will get in there and just kind of still continue to stretch and just relax and bring myself back down from what I brought my body through. So definite go for me.
All right. Next one we have ice bath after workout, worth it.
Ooh, there's some stipulations there, right? So for the most part, yes. There's a lot of research right now that says that is not ideal if your goal with your resistance training is hypertrophy. Not that it's a complete no go. It's
Mm-hmm.
just emerging research that's saying that you may not get your gains as well if you're doing it directly after, but it's definitely very, very beneficial to help with inflammation, help you recover a whole lot quicker. I know after long runs, it's a must for me.
Mm-hmm.
Get that little Neuracover $100 ice bath thing, and it's a lifesaver. So I love it. But again, for resistance training, when the goal is hypertrophy, which is building muscle, just be not so surprised if you're doing it consistently that your gains aren't as big as you want them to be.
Yeah, that's literally my guidance. I was having a conversation with someone earlier today about that. So when it comes to post workout, if your focus is hypertrophy, my guidance personally is no sooner than 4 to 6 hours. 6 hours is better. 4 hours is the closest that I would feel comfortable recommending somebody do it. Um, Now, if it's an athlete, let's say a CrossFit athlete that does multiple training sessions a day, they're not specifically worried about growing their biceps or growing their legs. By all means
Mm-hmm.
hop in the ice bath to recover, to allow yourself to jumpstart that recovery, to allow yourself to hit that second training session. You said long runs. I'll do like if let's say for PT you have a ruck march. I'll literally like if I have the time and I'm able, I'll come home. I'll hop in mine immediately after a ruck because to me. The damage that I took personally for myself as an athlete is kind of useless. Not that rucking. I'm not saying rucking is useless. I'm not saying any of those things. I'm saying for my personal goals at this point in time, I would benefit more recovering faster for the ruck, similar to you in a long run. You have another one tomorrow, so you
Mm-hmm.
would benefit more from recovering as quickly as possible from that long run. So that's the only thing that I say. 4 to 6 hours after workout, if you're trying to
Mm-hmm.
grow. Other than that, do it when you can. Before bed is even excellent. You'll get that nice deep sleep.
Yep.
Um, is coffee a must, or are there supplements you prefer? Follow on thermogenics question mark I'm gonna butcher this. Garcinia gambosia question mark.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, that's a lot. So it depends. I know that's the number one, like the answer everyone hates when they get stuff, but it really depends. Um, there is, let's start with coffee or caffeine, right?
Hmm.
I do my shot of espresso right before anything, right when I wake up. It gets me going.
Hmm.
But there's a lot of research that says that caffeine can start certain pathways for fat loss. So if your goal is fat loss and you're going into a run or whatever it might be, um, this is just me being a runner.
Hmm.
Caffeine, a shot. I still have my shot here, beam me up right here all the time,
Hey.
right? So, shot of espresso, black coffee, whatever it might be beforehand. And immediately when you get done with said um, endurance training, whether it's cardio, whatever you want to
Mhm.
call it, a lot of benefits to stimulating like your fat loss. But it's good for energy. I prefer maybe like a pill if you just really want that spurt of energy. Not a lot of bad things coming along with caffeine. I say that to I really want to make sure I like disclaimer. I'm not
Yep.
talking frappuccinos from Starbucks with all kinds of sugar and milks and all kinds of stuff in there. So, trying to remember what else you said. Garcinia Cambogia
Yeah, that was one of them.
and
And thermogenics.
thermogenics.
Oh,
Um,
also sorry. And then are there supplements you prefer? Which that one's kind of a long one. I would just for this context, I guess I would keep it with like those groups, I would say.
yeah, that's tough. I mean, that there, I can't say that I've read too much up on
Hmm.
Garcinia Cambogia. I know that's in a lot of supplements. Thermogenics, it just work out. Like the more you work out and the more you put on lean muscle tissue, the same amount of calories that you're going to burn above that baseline because of um, neat,
Hmm.
non-exercise, active thermogens. Like you're gonna burn those calories if you just build muscle or lean muscle tissue and things like that instead of getting a pill to do it for you to just kind of amp you up a little bit.
Hmm.
And so I'm usually against thermogenics because there's just other healthier ways because you can't take thermogenics for the rest of your life, but you could pick up a weight or two probably pretty consistently or go for a walk and things like that to build what you need to build in order to have that excess calorie burn, which is all thermogenics is trying to get you to. So I can shoot you a list of my favorite supplements, but I have to can't leave without like my top two. We already talked about one, and that's caffeine. Like
Hmm.
caffeine and creatine. Like creatine is the most proven one. We can talk stacking and how much and all of that stuff, but um, creatine is probably pretty big and important. And I have a whole list of ones that I use for endurance, one that I use for weight training, and all of those things. But that would be a whole nother episode. So stay tuned.
No, so yeah, caffeine for me, caffeine and creatine are, there's only three really, or I guess four that I personally even feel remotely comfortable recommending for a variety of reasons. But caffeine is the most, caffeine and creatine are the most studied. Good luck finding two others that are that studied. Whey protein simply because of the convenience. It's not that it's better than food. I can have a scoop of protein in my gym bag all day and it doesn't go bad like my chicken breast if I don't have a fridge. And then a multivitamin simply because we live in the Western world and where our food isn't as nutrient dense. So I'd rather, and people are like, oh, which one? I literally any multivitamin. Like I'm talking men's one a day. Like I grab the men's 61 a day just so I could be net positive in a sense of like if I'm taking nothing, I'm probably net negative,
Something.
right? And something is
Mm-hmm.
better. So it's like $7 for 30 tabs or whatever. Like, but and then Garcinia Gambogia. The trick there is finding a reputable source. Everybody's selling it. That doesn't mean the source is quality. Thermogenics, there's a marginal um benefit to it. All things considered, like your diet has to be good, your training has to be like that's assuming you're 100% on diet. That's assuming you're actually training
Yeah.
as hard as you should be. So like those things, there's marginal improvement. You're better off, honestly, probably finding those products with the ingredients on the that are incorporated in them and purchasing them separately, like
Yeah.
CLA,
Mm-hmm.
L-citrulline, things that do actually in fact move fatty acids, but they're not going to tell you that because those products are way cheaper and you can buy them
Right.
on Amazon for $10, $6, and thermogenics are $50.
Right.
Um, and then the last question we have here, should stomach vacuums be done at specific times or is it okay to do after core workout?
Oh, what now?
A stomach vacuum?
I can't say that I've heard of it.
Okay,
Help
so
me
you
out.
so like like when a bodybuilder hits like a front double bi and they suck their stomach in, essentially they're like basically dragging their belly button to touch their spine.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I'll cover this one. So I would say my personal recommendation is an empty stomach. Empty stomach simply because you're gonna have the ability to manipulate your stomach better than when it's got some fluid in it and some food in it. That'd be my personal opinion. Can it be done like post-workout during a posing session? Absolutely. Still do it. Just understand, like if I did, let's say I did a pull day and I've now taxed a portion of that system, those vacuums may not be as effective. So like if I wanted to be like optimal, I would probably do it like first thing in the like I actually will do them first thing in the morning. Just to, and it's simple. It's kind of like your breath work. Like I'll sit there and I'll do my stomach vacuums, it could be 10 holds. Like, it's something that simple. But I find personally, and most people would recommend it as well, is like since there's less in my stomach, I have more control of said stomach. And then I'm still, even when I do them later, let's say if I'm posing, they may not be as effective, but that's simply because of the training session that I had. It doesn't mean I don't do them. It's just if I'm trying to do them to improve, I would most likely do them in the morning. But yeah, I mean, that's, and if you're doing them, yeah, they're not comfortable, but um,
Bodybuilding world, it's a whole nother world. I
oh,
give it to you.
it's fan. Hey, I think all of it's amazing. Obviously I have my
Yeah.
the things that we like individually, but yeah,
Yeah.
we're gonna have to do 10 of these. I don't even know. Um,
Yeah.
but again, thank you so much for your time. You're one of the kindest, most savage human beings that I know. Just Oh man, saved does not mean soft, y'all. I'm telling you right now. That is a woman of God, and also just the a gangster that don't want to get on the wrong side with. Bounty of
Oh
knowledge,
man.
wealth of knowledge, just so kind. Thank you for your time. Do you want to leave it whoever's listening with a message? Where can they find you? What do you have upcoming besides the 100-mile race, or when's the 100-mile race? I know you told me.
So 100-mile race is in October. As of right now, God could have other plans, but I'm gonna train, I'm gonna do the work, and if the opportunity comes, I'm gonna enjoy the process, like my man Kobe Bryant always says, trust the process. And uh, my Instagram at dsandoval42. If you have any questions whatsoever, like seriously, I could talk this all day. You can shoot them my contact information, put my email address in there, and I'm more than happy to help
And
with
you're in the
any
group, right?
questions. I am in the group. I
Yep.
am in the
So
group.
they could tag you in the group
Yep.
in the question.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
for
I
sure. So
appreciate it, man.
no, thank you so much. I literally can't thank you enough. So this is gonna stay on the like Facebook Live, uploads it automatically to the group. I'm gonna upload it to YouTube. I'll have all your links in the description. Um, I mean, I'm blown away. I'm blown away by the support. I'm blown away for this opportunity. You were my first guest 3 years ago on a project that I benched that
Yeah,
it's manifesting itself in a different light. So
that's beautiful.
you had to be the first guest on this project
Hmm.
that I'm just diving headfirst into. You're beyond kind. I've learned so much. I'm going to continue to learn. Good luck on everything. This isn't, like I said, we're going to schedule another one. But
Hmm.
hey y'all, this is Reclaim King from the Reclaim Fit page. All right, Reclaim King, Coach K, whatever you want to call me. Just remember at the end of the day, it is your life. Reclaim it. All right, bye.